For over 5 centuries, the United States has been known around the world as the land of opportunity, and for many foreigners, there was a mystic awe and wonder surrounding their belief that our land's rich abundance actually paved our roads with gold and silver. In 1850, the first year the United States began collecting country of origin data through the census, the country had about 2 million immigrants, representing nearly 10% of the total population. Between 1860 and 1920, immigrants' share of the population fluctuated between 13 and 15%. Then in the 1920s, restrictive immigration laws were passed that limited permanent immigration almost exclusively to Northern and Western Europeans. These laws, combined with the Great Depression and World War II, led to a sharp drop in new arrivals from the Eastern Hemisphere, and the foreign-born population steadily declined from 15% to a record low of less than 5% in 1970. According to the Center for Immigration Studies, the U.S. immigrant population has hit a record-breaking 46.6 million, and as a share of the total U.S. population, immigrants are just over 14% now. That's the highest percentage in 111 years. Not everyone who lives here is welcome, though. And there is a population of undocumented immigrants living in America illegally that, if caught by Immigration Customs Enforcement, or ICE, could be deported back to their country of origin. While calculating exact figures for who is present in the U.S. without permission is a tricky task, according to the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, as of 2017, there are over 11 million undocumented immigrants. Of the 70 million children in the United States, approximately 18 million, more than a quarter of them, live with at least one immigrant parent, and 7% of the U.S. child population live with an undocumented immigrant parent. Of these 18 million children of immigrants, about 85% are U.S. citizens, having been native-born here in the United States to at least one foreign parent, and another 15% of these children are themselves undocumented, immigrating with family from another country. Almost half of these children of immigrant parents live in low-income families, compared to only 35% for children of U.S.-born parents. Most immigrants who enter the United States are of working age, so while they only comprise 14% of the U.S. population, immigrants make up 17% of the U.S. labor force. Within that 17% is a unique, very dedicated and resilient population that stands out: the immigrant working mothers. Estimates show that over 12 million immigrant women are members of our workforce and create 16% of all employed women in the United States. The top 10 countries women immigrate from are Mexico, the Philippines, China, India, Vietnam, El Salvador, the Dominican Republic, Korea, Cuba, and Jamaica. The language barrier is of great significance in the lives of working immigrant mothers. Some of them spend long hours studying English, while some never learn, and some, after decades of working on their English, still make noticeable mistakes when speaking, which announce that they are not from the U.S. Lack of good English skills is one reason why these women often have low-wage jobs. Recurrent jobs immigrant mothers have are often labor-intensive, exhausting, and relatively undesirable, such as housekeeping, janitorial and other cleaning positions, farm labor, food service, nursing assistants, home health aides, and childcare. In addition, to keep their jobs, many are expected to work well over 40 hours a week with zero benefits. And with more than half of immigrant mothers being the primary breadwinners of their families, this creates enormous pressure for them to stay employed just to provide for basic human needs. Because of their willingness to work overtime, filling low-wage positions, Americans gladly hire immigrant mothers to fill a niche the U.S. workforce needs to keep the country economically efficient. For example, when one immigrant mother works for a family as a nanny, two parents are then able to work at their jobs full-time. Unfortunately, because of the long, demanding hours, some children of these immigrant working mothers are left to be more independent than sometimes is appropriate for their age. At the forefront of the issues that impact these women's livelihood and potential mobility in society is a particularly significant area of interest: their immigration status. Over 2.5 million women, coming out of desperation, holding on to the hope that they can create a better life for themselves and their families with just their hard work and determination, have found a way to get into the U.S. and get employed without going through the proper legal channels. Fear of ICE keeps unauthorized working mothers from reporting mistreatment and exploitation of their labor because their need to provide for their families is more potent than their need for dignity. Suppose they are terminated from work or reported to ICE. In that case, they could be separated from their family and deported. So these ladies rarely complain to their employers about the hard work or long hours for fear of being terminated, because job security is seldom afforded to these working moms. They know they are easily replaceable if any unpleasantness occurs within their job or workplace. Therefore, they endure and remain silent. As is all too typical with matters concerning marginalized populations, the dominant narrative represented in the literature on the employment concerns of immigrant women is that of academics, counseling professionals, and policymakers. Finding any resources for career counseling, exploration, or support for immigrant women in the U.S. is a bit like finding a needle in a haystack. Never mind finding support specifically for working immigrant mothers. The employment concerns of immigrant women are mostly subsumed under the heading of immigrants and refugees. And the lack of gender differentiation in most research dilutes the impact of some of the critical issues facing most working mothers in immigrant groups, especially immigrant groups of color. The primary focus of the dominant economic narrative is about law and order for undocumented immigration, and the position serves to distort public perception and stereotypes of illegal aliens.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're not sending you. They're not sending you. They're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists.
Blaming them for diminishing economic opportunities for American citizens and contributing to the increased costs associated with the curtailing of illegal actions such as border security, detention, and deportation measures. This position also accuses undocumented immigrants of unfairly utilizing healthcare and social systems. Conversely, the counseling community regards the negative impact of the harmful rhetoric on daily life as the main ideology of physical and mental health issues among undocumented immigrants. The counseling field also promotes dialogue about the specific concerns of this community and engagement with policymakers to advocate for policy changes.
At the end of the 19th, beginning of 20th centuries, the Russian Empire forcefully moved my ancestors to Asia, Kazakhstan, and Kyrgyzstan. My father was Ukrainian Romanian, and my mother is Russian. We were all born in Kyrgyzstan, and we end up living in severe poverty after the Soviet Union collapse. Being hungry for years, not being able to buy medicine or clothes. At 13, I got chronic bronchitis, but my family couldn't afford antibiotics. So I remained sick into my 20s, getting medicine only at college. During those years, I dreamed to move to a safer, more stable country. My dreams were pretty simple: to have a kind spouse, children I could provide enough food, clothes, a safe place to live, good education opportunities, and that they never get food poisoning like we frequently did growing up. Oh, yes, and I have a few cats. I went to art college and got an associate degree in fine arts. There was a high level of unemployment in my hometown. The jobs I could find were so low paid. For example, my monthly salary in the art school with 20 hours of work was enough to buy one chocolate bar. When I couldn't find a good job in Kyrgyzstan, I moved to Russia to pursue my education towards master's degree and have better employment opportunities. I brought a lot of optimism that everything would work out. While studying and working in Russia, I began a long distance relationship with my future husband, a Canadian who spoke some Russian and worked in the US. We got married, and 7 months later, I was able to join him in Connecticut. After almost 5 years in the US, I became a US citizen. I had 3 children and lived the life of a financially controlled housewife. I wanted to go to college, but I needed my Kyrgyzstan and Russian official transcripts translated to English and sent away for verification. All attempts failed. As nothing was accepted, I had to start over and get a GED. After my GED, I became a newly divorced CNA working 72 hours a week at 3 jobs to support my children. With alimony, I became an LPN. After over 150 applications, I got a job in a nursing home. I am studying to become an RN. I am very close to finishing all the prerequisites to apply to an associate RN program. I am also getting a psychology degree. The difficulties I have with dialects, slangs, and most common cultural references in the US make me look awkward, maybe even slow. I feel like it affects my ability to create connections with American colleagues and classmates, neighbors. In addition, not having relatives and friends in the country makes me feel lonely and battle with depression. Colleges don't consider that foreign born students may need extra time, and it's tough meeting deadlines and finishing tests. I feel devastated about the war between Russia and Ukraine. It's left me in shock and disbelief. Like I mentioned, my father was Ukrainian, and I feel a deep connection with this culture and its people. My close family is in Russia now, and I'm worried about my elderly mother. I'm the sole support for my mother and disabled brother, and I pay for my sick aunt's medicine. If there could be only one change to help immigrants, I would educate the American population about how a person may feel living in a country where people speak a foreign language and have a different view of the world. Maybe we need a high school program for that. My children are teenagers now and have never had food poisoning. I work with the pediatric and young adult disabled population in their homes. I work from 5 to midnight, so I can be there during the school hours for my children. I love my job and I want to work as a home care nurse for the rest of my life. I have a supportive girlfriend and, yes, 7 cats. And although the journey has been different than what I expected, I believe I have succeeded.
SWIM recognizes that there are multiple barriers facing immigrant women and that these only become more daunting for mothers who must work. We seek to help our clients recognize the dignity and worth in themselves. With a focus on social cognitive career theory, SCCT, building self-efficacy, self-concept, and bicultural acculturation are the foundational concepts. We help them overcome these barriers through providing empowerment-grounded interventions that are culturally sensitive and promote social justice values and precepts. The program will include a mix of individual and group counseling, wellness coaching, self-esteem building workshops, career and work assessments, skill building, and in-home visits for health checkups and to decrease family isolation. These interventions are considered best practices for supporting individual growth, community connectedness, and acculturation among immigrant women. Critical to success is our active engagement and advocacy with all investors in the community. Through building self-esteem, community, skill capacity, and resiliency, we seek to increase the power, possibilities, and health of working immigrant mothers. Our program seeks to measure the client's perception of change, determined by improvement in their feelings of isolation, self-efficacy, depression, anxiety, and self-esteem, and by decreasing symptoms of trauma. SWIM is a one-year program that uses intake, milestone, and final assessments and provides childcare while the mother is on the premises participating in the program and gift cards for completion of assessments. Lack of available research on our clients is a barrier to creating and implementing a program that effectively serves to empower them. Funding seems to forever be an obstacle to doing good, and it may play a factor here as the clients will not be in a position to pay for services. Establishing trust within the community will be an ongoing effort that needs to be made by everyone involved in the program. When they know they are safe with us, the mothers can more easily be themselves and have their needs met. A concern for the staff is that fatigue and burnout creep in more easily with higher needs clients. To overcome these and other barriers, we seek to partner with the Association for Multicultural Counseling and Development Division of the American Counseling Association. It strives to improve cultural, ethnic, and racial empathy and understanding by programs to advance and sustain personal growth. A slogan in Maoist revolutionary China was "Women hold up half the sky," acknowledging the power of women's labor to the health and success of her family, community, and country. While there are huge hurdles for all women to thrive in the workforce, these magnify for immigrant mothers. As the rate of immigration soars due to war, the pandemic, and economic collapse, we hope this is a call to arms for the counseling profession. Colleagues, it is time to practice courage, dive into the deep end, and swim with us.